Last week, I talked about where to buy, but this week I want to give you the fishing rod instead of the bait. Today, we're talking about 3 vacation rental metrics you can use when you start looking for properties to narrow down that list. We're talking about real numbers, tools that will help you identify a smart investment from a money pit. By the end of this video, you'll know how to measure operational efficiency, estimate returns, and plan for the long haul with your vacation rental investment. Your first metric is going to be your revenue to price ratio. Now, this is a great one, and I introduce it first because it's a really good tool to use when you're first looking at all the properties out there. So this one tells you how well your property is performing versus its value. Now, the formula is simple. It's the revenue divided by the purchase price. Now, for example, if a property we estimate is going to do about $50,000 a year and its purchase price is $500,000, that's 10%. Here in Myrtle Beach, I would say the minimum threshold is about 10%. Anything below that, and I would say you're probably not getting the reward for the amount of risk. Now, you don't want to sleep on the fundamentals of real estate here. Keep in mind that you really have 2 types of markets. There's appreciation markets and there's cash flow markets. Obviously, in cash flow markets, you are going to have a stronger revenue to price ratio. Here in Myrtle Beach, we're a big appreciation market. We're close to the beach, space is limited, property values go up like crazy year over year. So when it comes to the cash flow, sometimes it's not as strong with this ratio when you compare it to price. But that's okay. This is all relative, and this ratio is going to give you a quick indicator of whether or not the property is worth looking at and help you sort through and filter down from all of the available properties out there. Next up, we have the OpEx ratio, short for operating expense ratio. This is going to show you how efficiently your property is operating. So here's the formula. It's another simple one. It's simply your operating expenses divided by your gross revenue. Now, let's take an example of a home that is producing about $40,000 per year. If your operating expenses are around, say, $10,000 divided by the 40,000 is about 0.25 or 25%. So what counts as an operating expense? This was something that tricked me up very early on as well. Some of those things could include property management fees. I'm looking at my cheat sheet here. Maintenance and repairs, utilities, insurance, supplies. So think like items that you're leaving in the home, like toilet paper, paper towel, coffee. Software systems, if this is something that you're doing on your own and self-managing, that's going to be an expense. And then taxes and HOA fees. Now, I would recommend leaving out cleaning fees. Technically, that is an operational expense, but for the most part, cleaning fees are not going to you. They should just be a pass-through to the cleaners. So I wouldn't include cleaning fees in operating expenses. I wouldn't include cleaning fees in your gross revenue either. Now, to give you an idea of what is relatively good for operating expenses, you can expect somewhere between 35 and say 55%. Anything above that, and you're really cutting it close on what your margin could be, and also, what your ROI is going to be, that could really hurt your return. And then anything below that, I would be kind of questioning, because anything below that, I think you could be cutting into things that may elevate or lead to a great guest experience. So I'd be very careful about anything below that. If you're in that 35 to 45% range, you're doing really well. If you're in 45 to 55%, that's average, kind of middle ground. There's nothing wrong with that. I would just be mindful if you're outside of those ranges. Now, some common mistakes: confusing OpEx with your mortgage. Now, your mortgage is a financial expense, right? It's financing. It's not a operational expense. So think, obviously, if you bought a house for cash, you have no mortgage, right? If you buy a house with 20% down, you have a mortgage, but it's not an operating expense. It's a financing cost. The other thing I would keep in mind is comparing your OpEx across unequal property types. For example, a condo, a 1-bedroom condo, could actually have a higher OpEx between the HOA and the management fee and utilities and whatnot. Could actually have a higher OpEx than, say, a 4-bedroom home, right? If that 4-bedroom home doesn't have many amenities like a pool, it could have pretty low operating expenses. Whereas a condo, typically it's going to be a higher management fee. Your HOA, especially in these oceanfront condos here in Myrtle Beach, are pretty high. So I would just keep that in mind. Comparing property types, you might have to split them into groups to really compare the OpEx. Now, this third and final metric is not something I would have talked about 2 years ago, but I think today it's one of the most important ones, and that is your improvement/renovation budget. Now, I don't really know if this is a metric. I don't think it qualifies as a metric, but it is extremely important. Now, this isn't just a one-time fix-it fund. This is something that obviously up front you have to invest in, and something that you're gonna have to come back to every year in the off-season to improve. You know, I hear pros talk about it all the time. Airbnbs that worked in 2022 do not work today. The best performing properties in the market are a small percentage at the very top, whereas a few years ago you had everybody perform. To perform today, you really need to have top amenities. You really need to have a professionally designed home, right? These are all things you have to invest in to get that sort of great return that you're looking for. Now, what does that investment look like? Well, today, smart owners are really investing about 5% of the revenue into that annual improvement budget, or that CapEx, right? The capital expenditures budget. And when you're first looking at a property, I've seen some of the really big pros that are buying expensive homes and making these what I would call resort-like properties. They say they're investing about 15 to 20% of the purchase price. So say you buy a $500,000 home, some of these guys, to really make them perform, and I would say this is true if you're buying a home that doesn't have a pool or doesn't have any top amenities or isn't professionally designed already, they're putting about 20% back in, which could be $100,000 into that $500,000 home you just bought. And that's just what it takes today. It's a very competitive market, right? You're buying a mini hotel. And the way I like to think about it is every year, you know, think about it like a hotel, right? Every year, hotels are constantly improving their product, their rooms, their lobby, their front desk, their buffet area, right? Constantly improving. And then every 5 to 10 years, all these great hotels are usually doing some sort of big design refresh, and that takes investment. It's about keeping your property appealing and not just operational. And the beauty of that is it's going to boost your bookings, and it will, absolutely will, increase your long-term resale value. Now, here's a bonus metric, and again, I'm maybe not sticking to the subject here as good as I should. It's maybe not a metric, but it's what I'm gonna call upside. I think one of the most important things about vacation rentals and short-term rentals is that it has upside with the revenue. These are risky investments, and these are not easy investments, right? Long-term rentals, heck of a lot easier, a lot more passive. I wouldn't say long-term rentals are passive, but I definitely wouldn't say in any world that vacation rentals are passive. It takes a lot of work, takes a lot of education and learning. So you wanna make sure you have that upside potential. And I'll give you some examples. So if you're looking at, like, say, homes, for example, I want a home with a big lot where I can put multiple amenities, right? If it doesn't have anything, I want to be able to add a pool. I want to be able to add a, mini putt-putt area, maybe even a pickleball court, right? I want to stack it with as many amenities as possible. If it doesn't have the space for that, it's not going to have that upside revenue potential, right? And then when you go in the home, right? Is this a big, beautiful property that you can design and host, high-paying customers, high-paying guests, right? High-paying guests don't want low ceilings, right? High-paying guests don't want small kitchens, right? They don't want a small dining area. They don't want a small living room, right? If you're getting a big vacation rental that multiple families or groups are going to come to, you need a big space, right? So just keep that in mind when you're buying or looking at properties. Make sure that they have the potential for a high revenue upside. Now you've got the playbook and how I would filter through all the noise using those 3 and 4 metrics. So if you want to dive a little deeper into the market, we've got a great report on our website, mybeachrentals.com. Go to the management services tab and then go down a little bit. It'll say 2025 market report. It's a great report that I gave some really good fundamentals for this Myrtle Beach market. It applies to North Myrtle Beach. It applies to Surfside Beach if you're looking down there as well. But it's a really, really good little report that is easy to read. It's got some big, beautiful graphics, and I would highly recommend it if you're looking in our market. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the video. Watch some of my other videos if this is a market that you're getting into. And otherwise, I will see you in the next one. Thanks.